guess if we then imagine that there's an undergraduate who just graduated with a digital transformation engineer, it's clear that they'd have a lot of new skills, right, in cybersecurity or AI. And so I think we're kind of getting at then, well, if we can do both, what do we have to get rid of? Is it fluids or thermo, or what is the traditional thing that's now makes room to make it possible to do both? I don't know if that's too narrow. I'm coming from the perspective of a mechanical engineering undergrad, so thank you.
See, wow, you learn fast. This is the question brings out why it's so hard to transform systemically, because people immediately start thinking about all the limits in front of them. And instead of thinking that way, you have to think about where we are and how students can access learning and all these other things, and think about what the opportunities are. I was reading something recently about an NBA star whose name escapes me right now, who said that he learned most of his refined skills on offense and defense as a teenager by watching YouTube videos, okay? And most YouTube videos are not an hour long like a classroom, okay? Because studies show that actually you lose, attention after about 5 to 10 minutes, which is why I try and keep my comments shorter than that. But we have to look at opportunities. And so if you think that the only place you can learn is in a 3-credit-hour class and it's measured in seat time, then no, it's a hopeless cause. We might as well just go home right now or go do something that's nice and sunny out today. The fact is there's different approaches to this, and we've actually come to the conclusion it almost doesn't matter what it is you're teaching. What's more important is how you teach it. What type of learning environment do you actually create for the student? Put the student at the center of the activity and build around that. The generation of students that we have right now are very, very different, okay? They do learn by just going online and watching stuff. They know how to use all these tools. And we're constrained because we're from a different age. It might even be the computing age, but we're beyond that, as I mentioned earlier. And so it's not so much what you have to take out, it's how you take what is necessary, like in engineering fundamentals like thermodynamics, and find a more creative way of allowing students to learn that and creating an environment where much of it can actually be done on their own. These kids that go to places like MIT and Purdue and some other ones, I think they're very capable of learning on their own. The real challenge in our nation is some of the second-tier universities where there's higher dropout rates, and this is where the loans and student loans are a real problem, is how do we also bring them along at the same time to make the kinds of changes. So be careful that you don't limit yourself because you think we're just adding more and more stuff. It's a matter of humans are smarter than they used to be. I'm not sure I could get into Purdue if I had the same experience I had in my high school a long, long time ago, because it was a very, very different high school and learning experience.
I think one of the other really cool things that we have to look at is what we're talking about here, especially the focus of Liveworx being on digital transformation. We're also talking about the very same tools that are going to help us engage in education faster than we ever have before. We're going to teach operational technology faster because we're going to engage augmented reality, and we're going to engage information from those processes that students can engage with and learn. So the very same things that we're wanting them to learn are the tools that are going to enable us to teach those things in a way we didn't do before. And that's a critical transformation you're seeing at all of these sites so that we're talking about, whether it's the site in Aachen, Germany that is clearly there and enabling students to engage in those technologies as a means of learning it. You know, we were talking just earlier today, Brian and I were talking about how we look at CAD packages and things like this, and the fact that The reality is we can teach a lot of things that we do in mechanical engineering traditionally through these things using those tools faster than some of the traditional methods that we've looked at. We can actually engage them in learning machine design while utilizing CAD packages and understanding the overall digital thread and the maturation of a design and how that then implies manufacturing techniques based on that. And the students can learn those things faster as we engage with some of the technology rather than trying to use the technology as an additional thing we have to learn. We embed the technology in the learning process, and that allows us to teach more than we would have in the same amount of time.
I'm not sure I'm responding to the gentleman's question in the back there, because I think it was an important question. But going back to Brian's question, I think one thing we need to all understand, in my opinion, is we're at a point now in history that every traditional institution is under attack in a way that it might not survive. Okay, no matter what we think about universities or not, the world of technology is so different. It goes back to some of the things that Gary said. It's so different now that the ability to get educated can happen in so many different ways that don't involve the university. If you go back to this issue around like CAD or not CAD, I mean, PTC, it was 2001, 2002, we were at a point of our survival was under attack. We didn't even realize it. We were a mechanical CAD company. Products had long past being mechanically CAD dominated. I mean, you know, and you think about the transformation now in the way products are being designed and manufactured and serviced and things like that. Is like, you know, I think successfully moved past who we were in order to ensure our survival and thriving, and industries are going by the wayside every day. The car industry has completely been transformed. You know what I mean? It's no longer the car design, the engine is changing completely. You know, entertainment technology is more important when people buy cars than they don't. Everything is under attack, and all of us, university professors, executives, and things like that, who think we're immune to the change that's going on, and somehow we can hang on to the past in a way to project ourselves into the future because we're self-interested in it, because it serves our needs, is completely diluted. And so when I use the idea, Gary said earlier about revolution, we're in a period where revolution is natural. It's not an extraordinary thing. And if we don't change, and if we don't change collectively, in this case, going back to the principle of universities and industry and even government working together, you know, it's going to be a very sad time for those people who think that they're going to survive this new era that we're facing. So,
What he said. Does anyone know what the term Luddite is?
Sure.
You heard of that historically? The first industrial revolution, which was steam power and water power, back in the late 1700s, which was, by the way, when the first Polytechnic was created in France, École Polytechnique, a great university. It was created primarily for a new discipline of engineering because it was needed. We are now in an industrial revolution, and we're moving from an agrarian society. There are people called Luddites in England that went around smashing the machines, okay, the automation machines that were going on. And that era had a huge impact on institutions, societal institutions. People started discovering, well, actually, we need to have more sophisticated workforce, so schools started more on elementary side at that time. And over time, as technology became much more sophisticated, and we got into the second industrial revolution, which is around sanitation, internal combustion engine, and some of those things in the late 1800s. That further stressed society, and that where in our country, we started our K through 12 system and started making that a requirement. Well, think again, that was done in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and you think K through 12 needs to maybe change too, part of this discussion. And why is only a 12th grade education enough these days? You look at the disaffected workforce that we have in this nation, and this is part of going back to what Barry was saying. We don't really understand how transformational and how disruptive this fourth industrial revolution is, which most of you might think of as Industry 4.0, but with the convergence of artificial intelligence, data and data analytics, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, and all these technologies that are starting to converge, it is truly a transformational time, and we as society and humans have not caught up to that. And so many of our societal organizations are under stress right now. And we need people that think that way and know that we have to go well beyond our current thinking in order to get us to where we're at. And that's really what we're talking about here. We have the industry side that sees this huge need because of the convergence of these technologies affecting advanced manufacturing, for example. And we have an education system that doesn't seem to be doing the job in order to better prepare them. And we have the current workforce that doesn't get it either, by the way, because what was the Internet of Things 30 years ago? It wasn't a thing 30 years ago, right? And so that's the challenge that we have. And this is whenever I get in front of a group, I always challenge you to wake up tomorrow thinking you're in a different world, because you are. The sooner you realize that, the sooner you will understand what the heck is going on in this world. And when it looks like the world is coming apart at the seams, I challenge you with this question. How many in this room woke up this morning with the intent to do ill, to tear down society in some way, to do bad? It might not look like that's what's going on in the world. There's billions of people, I think 7.35 billion, if I checked my Amazon this morning, Kindle. The vast majority, we get up every day to make the world better. We will get there, but all we hear about are the outliers, right? And that's the problem, is it looks like things are really bad when, you know, the vast majority of people just get up every day wanting to survive and do better, either for their family or their company or whatever. And that's what we have to be focused on. But we also have to challenge ourselves constantly. It's a different world. What does that mean to me personally? What does that mean to my family, my community, the company I work for? And constantly try and look forward on how we can better the institutions, because we are being challenged.
Thank you. Jerry, did you have a comment?
Well, I think it's interesting as we talk about the role of education and the mix of industry and education. It is rare for me to see one of our graduates go out into any industry, regardless of sector, without being sucked into some sort of rotational program when they go into those companies. And in many cases, those rotational programs are as long as their undergraduate degree was. They get an undergraduate degree for 4 years, they get pulled into a company and they go through a rotational program for another 4 years. And part of that is because each organization has a unique culture. They want those students to be able to find something that they both like and dislike, so that they can know that they're in an area and they find some ownership within those groups. And I don't think that's a piece of the puzzle that academia is trying to take away, or even has a goal to try to address. The reality is that customization in many ways will happen once they hit the companies. And the role of the university is to prepare them with all of the tools and the practices and an understanding of how to learn and grow at the rate that they need to. I've often told students that an undergraduate in engineering is just learning another language. It's like going and learning Portuguese or French or anything else at a university. You're just learning the language of engineering in a way that you can communicate with all of the people in the technical world. And if they learn that and the critical thinking required to do that, then they thrive in whatever environment that they're found in. And I don't think that role, going back to the question that we had, how do we deal with higher thought? I don't think that role at the university's changed. The difference is how we embed all of the tools, which are part of that, into the overall educational system. And so we're not going to see that separate from industry and the university. I think what we're going to see is the continual merging of industry and university playing a role in the education of these people as they effectively move out into society.
Thank you. Jerry?
Talking about challenges, what's interesting, I think everybody probably saw Jim Heppelman's presentation around smart machines, smart connected people. I think we go back to the first question I answered around opportunity and threat and things. I think the world's worked very hard at making machines and robots smarter. Robots are really much smarter. They're working collectively. They can do a lot of things that are fairly amazing. The real function of universities is to ensure that people don't fall behind the machines in terms of this idea of growth and the ability to think and do things. And the only way that can happen is by putting humans above the technology to leverage human beings with the advantage of technology. Jim made mention, I don't think it was a small group, but the idea is, if you sit down across from a great chess player and you have the IBM Watson helping you play chess against that chess player, you're going to beat that chess player with the help of Watson. Well, that's just the beginning of the idea that fundamental knowledge is going to be so available in so many different ways through technology, through the Internet of Things, through AR, that human capacity is going to increase no matter what. But the real challenge for us is going to increase so that we actually have a leadership role in knowledge in relation to how machines are getting smarter, because machines are getting pumping all that information all the time. And they're walking around with that information. It sounds like far-fetched, but how do people emerge and compete and lead in the world of tomorrow? That's the real function of universities. And how does that happen in a way that produces a better world for all of us? So,
Thank you. Thank you to all of you for the discussion today. I'd like to wrap up by doing a quick lightning round if there aren't any more questions are there questions from the audience? Yes, please go ahead.
This could take us down a rat hole.
But never mind. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
We've been talking a lot about how the educational institutions have to change more rapidly to provide the new skills in this digital economy that we're in. And universities have traditionally focused on the high school students moving through undergraduate and graduate programs. And we heard yesterday that even if we do a great job of pushing students through like we always have, America's still got 2.2 million jobs that are going to go unfilled in the next couple of years. So one problem is to get the educational system to offer the right content, change the content more rapidly than they have in the past to get the skill set. But if we don't do something with the existing workforce, it was the comment you just touched, Gary, a couple minutes ago, if we don't upskill and reskill our current workforce somehow, and maybe that's educational institutions or maybe it's up to industry, we're not going to close that skill gap, and the problem will continue to be a burning platform in America. So a question is, do the universities view their role as changing from just the traditional four-year student or graduate student and providing a much bigger role in re-educating, upskilling, reskilling the current workforce? What are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of them. I suggest you go to Purdue's website, the opening page. Purdue takes its land grant mission very seriously. And the land grant institution, for those as a quick reminder, were set up by the Morrill Act just during 1862. If that doesn't give you any confidence in the greatness of humanity in the middle of the Civil War, we came up with this great idea of creating land-grant universities, which were to serve the needs of state, and they're primarily agricultural and mechanical universities were set up that way. We view our role now as the land-grant university of the digital age, for example. So we've taken over something and rebranded it and called it Purdue Global. These are all online degrees that you can get with a Purdue brand on it. We're aggressively moving into Purdue Online, which is primarily the upskilling. These are not necessarily degree programs. These are going to be courses, workshops, whatever, credentialing of the current workforce. And then we have the traditional, because there are still a lot of students and parents that would like their kids to have an on-campus experience and what that really means. And so we're doing things there with not raising tuition for the last 7 years and doing it in such a way where we're, looking at our options and how we can actually continue to finance higher education from within. And there are other universities, I mentioned Arizona State earlier, who's trying to do the same kinds of things. So and Arizona State is a land-grant institution. I think that's a starting point. The land-grant institutions in this nation have to rethink their role in the digital age, and we will, I think, eventually get there.
Thank you. So now we're going to do the lightning round. The question that I'd like to ask, and just rapid fire, have each of you answer it, is we've talked about a lot of challenges today, some of the obstacles and overcoming those challenges, or overcoming, as we move forward into this era of digital transformation. But there's a lot of opportunities as well, which is what we started with. And I'd like to ask each of you, what makes you most hopeful or excited about this era of digital transformation as we move forward and leave here today?
Well, I was first last time, so I'll be last this time.
That's fine.
From an academic standpoint, by far the thing that makes me the most excited is how interested and enthusiastic students are about engaging in digital transformation.
Thank you.
In my understanding, it's the maturity of technology that will help to have effective practice. All theoretical bases are from the 50s or the 60s for cybernetics and automation and so on and so on. But now we have all the technologies available to do and to implement all the concept, and it's a great opportunity and great challenge in face of us.
Thank you.
My answer is similar to yours. It's all about the students in the future. Being on campus at a great university and seeing students every day, you can't help but think in an optimistic manner. And are you students? You kind of look like it. I want one of those T-shirts.
I would say what makes me most excited and hopeful and interested in what's happening here is the transformational opportunity goes all the way back into the most sort of fundamental things that a mechanical engineer learns about how design is going to happen. It's not just about smart connected products on the edge with AI. There's actually real transformation happening in like core engineering design. Really, really cool. So it's like, irrespective of where you are in terms of your thinking and your interests as an engineering or science student, there's an opportunity for transformation. It really envelops everything that a company might think about doing to deliver products to market more effectively. So it's like anybody and everybody, no matter where you are, can be involved. So that's very, very cool in my mind.
Great, thank you.
So I agree with everything that's been said, but I would add that the thing that I'm most optimistic about when I work with universities is students are really trying to attribute meaning to their learning and try to understand the outcomes and the impacts that learning can actually make. So as they're working with these new technologies, they're really trying to project what that means into kind of a socioeconomic context and taking quite a lot of passion and just excitement about what that can mean. So I'm really optimistic about that, and that really creates these new learning areas and intersects. And from an industry perspective, the students are really doing some really cool things with some of the new technologies.
Thank you.
So if I personalize it for myself, keep it close in, I started the academic program PTC in 1998. It was predicated on the idea of the engineer of the future, and that underserved populations like women, minorities, and farm kids really couldn't get to be engineers in their lives. And with the hope and the belief that, particularly around CAD, because we were a CAD company at that time, is that students could actually catch up by learning CAD, because most students were learning things like reading and writing, and the world of the future was in designing and manufacturing things. And it's over 20 years now that we've been at it at PTC, and every year we've inched further and further making academic programs central to the corporation's mission. And it's got a big leap when we hired Jordan Cox, who leads our academic program, and the idea that a company that cares about profit could actually care about education, and care about giving back and all the free software we give away and things like that. I'm not making a personal plea around PTC, but the fact of the matter is that it sustained itself, that it's mainstream, that we're doing the kind of work we're doing now with Rockwell and Microsoft and Purdue and lots of other universities. So I'd say my optimism is based on the personal experience that if you persevere and you believe in something for a long time and you stay with it, change happens. And maybe it has to happen quicker, but I'm very optimistic about the kind of work that we're doing collaboratively today and about what the future might bring.
Thank you. Thanks, Barry. Thanks, everyone, for your participation, and thank you to our guests for your participation and attendance today.